All right, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the Mac Room. I'm Jim Larsen, and I am joined here with Sara Reineke and Scott Schnitzer. I'm going to let them introduce themselves here in just a second, but we are going to have a conversation, which is really the continuing of the conversation that I initiate every Wednesday evening here at 7 p.m. when I do the new agent masterclass. Now, during that masterclass, I'm introducing people to four challenges of mastery. Four challenges, and they're sequential in that they follow a sequence. You can't move to the third one until you've mastered one and two. So we're going to talk now about the very first challenge of mastery, which is mastering your schedule. And again, following a sequence, and this being the first one, we can't have a conversation about production until you've mastered your schedule. If you don't know how to show up, where to show up, when to show up, it doesn't matter that you're even good at this. Because consistency and showing up is going to be the thing. I would say, and I'll speak for both Sara and Scott here, that it's not even that we watch so many people fail at this point. We watch like a failure to launch.
Yep.
We watch more people literally never get off the ground. No matter the hopes, the dreams, the size of the goal, whatever they came here wanting, never gets off the ground if you don't figure out how to master your schedule. So I'm going to walk through a couple slides here that you've seen before on the New Agent Welcome, but I'm going to walk through the ones very relevant to schedule. And then we're going to have a conversation on exactly how to master this piece. Now, with each of these four challenges of mastery, there are two keys that successful people leverage. And I'm sure we're going to talk about how those apply here. But the first key is going to be extreme ownership. Successful people, the ones that actually master their schedule and then master the learning curve and production and leadership following that, they have extreme ownership. They don't wait on anybody. They diagnose problems and they leverage resources to solve them. They are proactive in making sure they are making progress and taking the next steps. The second key of successful people is abundant participation. We will definitely hit on this one quite a bit when it comes to scheduling and where you should be when. But they are part of the fabric of the community. They ask and answer questions. They're on calls with their camera on. They know people and they're known by people. In the Wednesday evening, I talk about being Rudy. Like, you know the movie Rudy, right? Like this guy, it's a Cinderella story. He wasn't going to amount to anything, but he shows up every day early, great attitude. He gives everyone a story worth rooting for. And my challenge is for you in this journey to be a story worth rooting for. Now, let's talk about diving into mastering your schedule. Now, you're going to do this or you're going to quit. And I need you to understand there's a sense of urgency built into this, because if you are 6 months in, 9 months in, a year in, and you've not yet mastered your schedule, guess what? You're going to quit. So you don't have forever to figure this out. You have an arbitrary limited amount of time that's each unique to every single one of you, where if you don't figure it out before that clock strikes zero, man, you're not going to make it. So I want to challenge you. There's a sense of urgency, and we're going to talk about exactly how to do it. But the purpose in this very first challenge and the goal of this is to develop a rhythm of consistently showing up for your business in the right ways without reminders. Now, every single one of you, every one of us, Sara and Scott, myself included, came into this business wearing multiple hats, with competing priorities, with distractions, with a lack of motivation, dealing with our own inconsistencies and procrastination, questioning the necessity of everything from training calls to CRMs to to showing up in work meetings, like, let me just go to work, and then our own natural inconsistency. You're coming here pulled in a million directions. Every one of you has spent all 24 hours of every day of your entire life not selling life insurance with Symmetry. So if you're going to start doing that, it's going to come at the cost of something you would otherwise be doing. Your challenge in this season is to figure out what it's coming at the cost of. What are you sacrificing? If you're inconsistent, and I want you to take a look at what it looks like when you've not yet done this. If you're still inconsistent, you're showing up for a couple days, disappearing for a few days. If you still need reminders to get on calls or to do things, if you're not sure what you should be doing, you're like, I got time to do it, but I don't know what I should be doing. If you're working alone, not in the Mac room, not blowing up your mentor's phone, there's no judgment from us. We just need you to know you've not mastered this and you can't move on until you do. I can't have a conversation with someone about how to get good at sales if they're inconsistent, they need reminders, they're unsure about what to do, and they're working alone. We're putting the cart before the horse in that case. Now, once you've done this, you're going to know that you should be at least on 2 training calls a week with your camera on. You're going to know you should be making at least 300 dials a week, probably closer to 500. You're going to know that the goal is meeting with, not setting 10 appointments, but meeting with 10 families a week. You're going to know that logging into the Mac room when you're working is the most important thing you can do. You're going to find yourself obsessing over this a little bit, even when it's not quote unquote working hours. And you're going to be able to do all of that stuff without reminders. That's when you know you've mastered this. So with that said, I'm going to stop my share. And I'm going to have Sara and Scott introduce themselves. And we're going to have this conversation on mastering your schedule. So, Sara, why don't you unmute and introduce yourself to everyone here?
I would love to. Sara Reineke, Managing Vice President, and directed Jacob Pogue, Marshall Whalen Hierarchy, and directed the company, which means I get to serve all of you for a living, which is an absolute dream come true. And the job that I signed up for. Too bad I couldn't have it immediately. That would have been fun, but it's not how it works. Had to earn it, but man, I love it. I never take a day for granted. I love this topic so much. And in my mind, the schedule all boils down to, am I someone who does what I say I'm going to do?
Mm.
That's it. And proving that to yourself over and over and over again. So that's got to come first. So let's talk about it. Hey, Scott.
What's up? Yeah, but it builds belief in yourself.
Hmm.
You want to believe yourself? You got to become the person that's willing to follow through with a schedule and do what you say. Like if I have it planned, I'm going to do it. That's why I love this chat, Jim. But my name's Scott Schnitzer. I am direct to Ashley Tarr and Danny Young, direct to the company. I'm a senior vice president, and I'm stoked for this conversation because all three of us live and die by our schedules. Like if it's not in there, it's not happening. I think if we wanted to hang out outside of work, we're going to do the same thing. Jim,
Yeah.
Thursday, you good for 7 o'clock? Because I've got a 5, right?
Yep.
It's going to go in the calendar. So
Yeah,
this
I'm going to tell you, I don't know if I'm good for Thursday until I open up my calendar. I have no idea.
100%,
Yep.
100%.
Well, Sara, I'm gonna have you kind of kick this off. And I don't want to hear from both of you, so I'll ping questions, probably the same question in a lot of cases, back and forth to get 2 different perspectives. But Sara, why don't you walk us through what some of those competing priorities were when you first came in here? Like, what brought you to Symmetry? What were you dealing with? You didn't come here with insurance experience, so you had to make time sacrifices. Walk us through what coming here looked like for you.
Oh, for sure. I've learned to call them noble obstacles. There's a book called Finish by John Acuff that I love so much, and he talks about the noble obstacles in our life. And there's no one more distractible than a new dialer. So if you easy to distract a new dialer, you're like, oh, that trim needs painted in the laundry room. That has been nagging at me. I better get that done today instead of get these next 100 dials in. And I was no different. I didn't come here with any insurance experience, but I came here with a great personality, Jim, and I thought that is going to be enough. Turns out it was not enough, and I had to
Not
figure out how.
enough.
I know, shocker. And for me, the noble obstacles were mom stuff. So I don't know if you have any other moms on here. I think we have a lot of moms on here, and I know it's the same for dads, but I'm talking to the moms, okay? Because for me, if somebody pops by and my house is a mess, I feel like it's a reflection on me, right? Like they're not gonna say, Jared, your house is a mess. Like they may not say it, but they're judging me, under their breath. And for me, I had a really hard time getting my symmetry work done when I had dishes in the sink or laundry that needed done, or I'm looking and I see dust on the floor over there, or just house mom things that needed done. And I like my dishes done and I like my laundry done, and I think better when it is done. So there are some moms on here that can work with dishes in the sink and laundry that needs done. No judgment. I wasn't that girl. So one thing I had to learn to do was to treat this like a job, like I did when I taught. So when I taught school, after dinner, all my chores had to get done after dinner, right? Dishes done, laundry done, everything kind of set up for the day. And then when I get up in the morning, make my bed, and then my house is clean, which is also my office, right? So I had to find ways. So if I punted that stuff, then the next day I was easily distracted by the mom work stuff that I need to get done. The mom side of it, um, man, a lot of us are here because of our kids. And I know Jim, you talked about it Ignite. Our kids don't want to be our dream, but we want something better for our kids than maybe we were given. And I know I sure did. I want to be the yes grandma. I know I'm close to being grandma at this point. That is crazy to think about. But I want to be the yes grandma. I want to be the yes in retirement. Yes, let's take a trip, right? So that the a lot of us are here because of our kids, because we want more for our kids. And then the crazy thing is, Jim and Scott, we see especially moms not make it here because their kids took them out. They're doing it for their kids and they let their kids take them out of
Mm.
business. I see it all the time. And your kids are adorable, but they are wired to be egocentric. The world revolves around them until they learn otherwise, right? So, Scott, you got those little tiny kids at home and their world, like it is everything revolving around, Liam and Olivia right now. As
Yeah.
they get older, they find out maybe that's not true, but they're going to try to get what they want. Olivia wants fed. She wants fed now. Like she doesn't care what you've got going on. Well, when they're 14, they do things like come in your office and say things like, I just wish your job was more flexible. I was like, oh my gosh. My initial response is like, I've ruined my kids by working too much. Oh my God, this is the worst. They're never gonna make. And then I have to stop and go, Claire, what do you need? Well, I thought we can go to Starbucks. Okay, this is about Starbucks. So she's like, if I can throw this guilt bomb over the screen and let it land right on her keyboard, she might feel guilty enough to get me to get up right now and go to Starbucks. And that is not a need. If I worked in downtown or if I was teaching, I couldn't do that, right? So I had to learn to do what I say I'm going to do on both sides of the fence. To all of you parents, moms and dads, I'll talk to both of you. The way to get around this is when you're going to work. Don't leave for Starbucks right then. She doesn't need that. Work when you say you're going to work. In the evening or whenever you've said you're not going to work and you're going to be with your kids, be with your kids. Go to Starbucks then. Take your daughter. Go sit with her, talk with her, and don't work while you're sitting at Starbucks with your daughter, getting a latte, right? So you have to learn to just be really intentional on both sides when you're working and when you're not. And that way you don't feel guilty on either side. So the noble obstacles for me, mom and home stuff for sure.
Yeah. And I'll tell you too, there's a recipe, I swear, for success is copy and paste, no matter what industry or area you want to look at. And that very simply, and this is for you guys in the audience too, when you think of any significant goal you've achieved or you've ever seen achieved, the person who achieved that, whether it was 100-pound weight loss, running a long distance race, building a great business, in every single case, that person developed the ability to set their goal and arrange their life around that goal instead of trying to fit their goal into their life. Because to Sarah's point, I see so many people try to set a schedule, say, I know I need to do these things, and then inevitably they get distracted. But if they're honest with themselves, the distractions were things they knew were going to come. It is not a surprise. If you have kids at home, you can't be surprised that they distracted you. I would be surprised if they didn't. And so it's a matter of not just setting the intention, but creating the boundaries and creating the way to enforce that intention. A lot like, and Sarah said this, a lot like she was actually at a job clocked in.
Yeah.
And truly, for a lot of you, this is your first foray into professional independence. For most of you, you've worked W-2 jobs and you've had bosses. And you're like, wait, I want to be the boss and I want to work on my own terms. And yeah, that sounds great. But when you work on your own terms, you are your own accountability partner. And if you're honest with yourself, you might not be a really good accountability partner for yourself. We have all learned to let ourselves off the hook. And that becomes so much of what Sara was talking about too, with becoming the type of person that does what they say they're going to do. Scott, let me kick this over to you because you didn't have mom guilt coming into here. Um, your origin story with symmetry is a little bit different, so I'm going to let you kind of walk us through what were some of those early obstacles you dealt with, what brought you here in the first place.
Yeah. Well, not having any freedom brought me here. My previous career, I was a sales manager at a dealership, and I worked about 70 hours a week. And I would get home from work, Groundhog's Day, literally every single day, Jim. I knew what was going to happen when I got home from work because it was the same thing over and over and over again. And I'm not saying like a consistent schedule isn't good. I actually thrive on consistency now. I want the same work schedule, but I want a little bit more freedom in my personal life. And I would get home from work, and I knew what would happen when I walked in the door. We got the lunch pail ready for the next day because I needed to take something with me for a 13-hour day. And then we would turn on a show. Barely have enough time to hang out with each other. There was no date nights. There was no, extracurricular. There was no going to a small group or hanging out with friends or going down to a restaurant together. It was just repeat every single day. So throughout the week, it was just Groundhog's Day. And that's what really started killing me inside because I'm one of those type, I don't know about you, Jim. I like hanging out with my wife. Sara, you love hanging out with Jared. Like we enjoy each other. I'm not trying to find new hobbies that get in the way of me spending time with her. I'm actually trying to find more time to be with her. Um, our time is scheduled now. And where I started, this talk was like, Jim, if we're going to hang out, it's going to be scheduled. It's the same way with me and my wife. If we're going to have a date night, it's in the calendar. If we're going to have time to go on a walk together, even something as small as that throughout the day, where I'm going to put a walk in the middle of the day, it's going to be scheduled. So I make sure it doesn't conflict with the other things I got going on here. I didn't have kid guilt coming into this. I actually had like this false perception of freedom
Mm.
because I came from a W-2 job and I was used to showing up at that dealership, and all day there was people walking in the door. The doors were ringing. I had people asking for prices, just different things all day long. And I was so over that, ready to start here with Symmetry full time. I was actually licensed for a whole year, waiting on the sidelines because I kind of had an exit strategy in mind. It was a family business, so I couldn't just leave there right away and leave everyone high and dry. So I trained my replacement over this year. I was just like, man, I cannot wait to go full time. So once I finally did, the false perception of freedom really kicked in because I felt like I now had all this freedom. I'm working from home. Kate's in the office next door because she started with Symmetry 4 months before I did. So no kids running around the house, but this false freedom led me into making $2,000 my first month.
Yeah.
Laundry wasn't important to me before I started with Symmetry. Now I'm asking Kate, how do you want the towels folded? I'll fold them for you right now. I got nothing else going on. You want me to pick up the kitchen for you? I got it this time. You could do it next time. Ceiling fans, they have dust on them. We haven't looked at those in a couple years. Let's look at those right now. I had this false perception. I wanted to go on the lunch dates with her and really experience this freedom. Well, I experienced it. I ate too much my first month. My bank account didn't reflect what it should have. So I got myself into this position where my back was up against the wall. This was it for me. I had no backup plan. So schedule had to be fixed. Like weekly non-negotiables had to be set in place. Time mastery had to be, I had to really think about what I was doing with my time and where I was wasting time throughout my week, or else I would have had another month of bad production, which I did. Third month for me was really good. Okay, first 2 months really slow. But I knew that I was probably going to be homeless if I didn't figure it out sooner or later. So that's my story. When we got here, um, the time freedom aspect really got to us big time.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are going to be two big elements to this conversation. And the first one's going to be emphasizing the importance, which we've already been hitting on a lot, of living off of a calendar and setting that intention. The second part of this conversation is how do you get yourself to actually do it once it's in the calendar? Because I'm pretty good at putting stuff, I used to be. I used to be good at putting stuff in a calendar and then feeling like, well, I could do that. I also could not do that. But let's go to that first part. If we're gonna ask people, and again, we're not asking them because they work for us. We're asking people to work for their goals, for their dreams, for their legacy, for the stuff they came for. But we know the pathway. So if we're going to tell them, hey, if you're going to get where you want to go, you're going to have to make sacrifices. If they're going to be willing to make those sacrifices, they got to be laser focused on why they're making that sacrifice. Why'd you do it, Sarah?
Oh man.
Why did you sacrifice everything you did, including Claire's Starbucks?
I know. She's still mad about that. She survived. She's okay. I keep thinking about Scott when he's saying false freedom. I'm like, man, that takes so many people out of this business. And when you said the failure to launch, Jim, like that's, and when people say, man, it didn't work for me, I'm like, no, you didn't do it yet. You don't even get to claim that it didn't work for you because you truly didn't do it. That's whenever I get the crazies. You don't get to even claim a fail, like you didn't do it. And that freedom piece, I see too many people come in and they're like, I'm gonna go to the gym at 10 a.m. and I'm gonna go to lunch with my friends at noon. And they take advantage of the freedom way too soon, and that totally takes them out. Man, it's crazy. Man, why did I have to? People say to me a lot, like, how did you do it? I'm like, I didn't have a choice.
Mm.
I did not have a choice. I'm a Scott, like homeless, like losing my house to foreclosure, losing our cars to being repossessed. Turns out if you don't pay your car payment a few months in a row, they do come and take it. Maybe Scott, you knew that working in the industry, like they do actually bring a wrecker. We learned this while I was eating chips and salsa. We saw
If
on
the
our
credit
Ring doorbell that they
the
will.
credit was really bad, we would put a tracking device on it.
What? That was next on the list. Oh God, we don't
Next
want to put
level.
that next level. We see in the Ring doorbell that, a wrecker is at our house. We're like, if we were not eating chips and salsa, they would have taken our car. So when I say, did we have to, we had to hide that Escalade in the garage that had never housed the Escalade before. But we moved some shelves around, hid it overnight, figured out something the next day. So when I say we had to, we had to. Right. And so I know there's a lot of people that come in saying they have to, but I've heard Jim, you say, like, don't tell me you have to, and then you're putting in 20 hours a week. I don't get it. I was living and breathing this because in my mind, I'm like, so Reineke, what do you think you're going to do? What do you think you're going to do? If it's not this, you're going to go back to teaching? Okay, well, then put the house on the market because we can't afford to be in this house. It's not a mansion, but it's not. Jared had a good job, but it took two good jobs to fund our life. And going back to teaching is impactful, but not going to bring in the money that we would need to just pay our bills, right? So, okay. And I also did not want to do that. Um, Second, I'm like, do I want to go into real estate? Well, just getting my real estate license, I'm in no better shape than I am just getting my insurance license. It's going to take a long time to build a business there. I don't have time for that. Okay, maybe I'll go into pharmaceuticals like my best friend. She's been in the business 20 some years. My resume looks terrible. Back to just a good personality. I don't know that it was going to get me a job in pharma. And I'm like, where else can I go that if I put in the hard work, I can bring in 10K a month on my own pen? I'm like, well, that's what we had to have to break even, to be honest, in our house. And I didn't see any other route that I could go to quickly bring in $10,000 a month on my own pen like next month. And what's crazy is that month, the $84 month which was month five. 2 months later, January was our first 10K month. That's what I love about this business. It's like the image where the ice pick, they've almost made it all the way across. Like so many people quit before that one more ice pick where that 10K month lived. The $84 month was 2 months away from my first 10K month, which is crazy. So in our household, I didn't have a choice. This was it. All chips in, had to figure it out as quickly as possible. And if I have anything to do over, which I wouldn't change a lot, my story is incredible. It was bumpy, it was bruisy, but I wouldn't change anything except for if I had one thing to change, I would have gotten good at production faster. I would have
Mm.
respected production. And instead of thinking my personality was going to get me through, I wish I would have learned that sooner. That would have solved a lot of my problems sooner. But y'all, Jared sold plasma to pay for leads. I sold all my purses. We sold the Peloton. We cut everything out of our budget except for the cleaning ladies. I'm not going to lie. Like I was ready to give a kidney before we cut the cleaning ladies. I was like literally on my hands and knees with Jared. I was like, don't cut the cleaning ladies. I'll never get them back. He's like, you're crazy. And I'm like, take a kidney. I don't care. We were down to that, but we didn't go out to eat. I cut every vacation, like my boutique shopping was done. They thought that I had moved away. We just cut it all chips in, had to make it work. That's where we were.
Yeah, Scott, I think you and me are that we're, kind of came in with that same exact place as Sarah. Like all three of us back against the wall, all chips in, had to make this work. Now, that's not going to be everyone in this audience. And so, what I want you guys to understand is there's a spectrum coming in here. And on one side are the people like me and Scott and Sarah back against the wall, have to make this work, right? Over here are going to be people that, you know what? For whatever reason, they're financially stable. They don't need to make this work. They love the idea of it working. Maybe it's the time freedom, the ownership, lots of reasons, but they don't necessarily need it, right? And everyone's going to come in somewhere on this spectrum. And I need you to understand there are pros and cons. When you're over here on this side, the pros to this are you have never had a bigger motivator in your entire life. Like you have a reason to work. The cons are the pressure you feel is immense. And some people can crack under that pressure and give up on their dreams and goals and sell short and go back to a job that'll never get them where they want to go. The other side of this coin has pros and cons too. You might not need this to work. So guess what? You don't face pressure, which is your greatest asset. You can practice without pressure. If that appointment doesn't show, if that policy application declines, guess what? No big deal. You can just keep moving on, practicing without pressure. But what do you think the cons are over here? There's nothing that really needs to get done today. In fact, you could quit and your life is still going to go on fine. And so your con over here is you've got to create a sense of urgency. Scott, why don't you, switching gears a little bit here, walk through what are the items if someone's literally brand new and they're like, all right, I get it. I need to set up my schedule. What do they put in that schedule and what does that look like?
Yeah, definitely. So production was super important for me to figure out first. I think you gotta fuel your, I knew I had this vision. I knew I wanted to grow a big agency, Jim. I knew I wanted time freedom. But the biggest piece here is you gotta stay in business. You gotta stay profitable early on. So production has to be the main focus, right? There's so many other things that we can focus on. I could be creating a website, I could be networking and going and getting my name out there in the community. Really, all that mattered was me having this phone next to my ear, setting appointments up and helping people out with life insurance and trying to perfect that learning curve early on so that my family could get paid so I could live to see another month here. Okay, month one for me, we had about $10,000 in bills, Sarah, so a little bit higher, and there were some sacrifices made. There were some things that we were making payments on that we had to let go of. So there was definitely sacrifice, but there was still quite a bit of monthly obligation there between bills and just everything we had going on. So I needed about 10 grand just to float. Okay. First month I made 2,000. Second month I made 2,100. By month three, I made $8,000. By month six, I made 16. So there was definitely a learning curve. I felt like once I could perfect this schedule, Jim, that I'm about to go through, the closer I can get to par, the more money is going to be in my pocket because that means deposits because I was actually working the system. And it was looking at my calendar for the whole week and I would put in 20 time slots in there, 20 different time slots, and I would name it appointment one, appointment two, appointment three, appointment four. I would do that across the entire board for the whole week. Whenever I had time to run an appointment, I would name it. That way, when I was on the phone with someone and we were talking about what times I had available, I had something to go off of. I didn't want to just tell them, hey, I'm brand new here and I would take your business whenever you're willing to give it to me. So let's meet whenever you're available. I wanted to sound professional. I wanted to sound busy. So when I looked at my calendar and I had 3 time slots open for tomorrow, I could tell them legitimately, hey, I've got 3 available tomorrow. Okay. I also needed to have 12 hours of dial time scheduled out. And this wasn't dial time where I was willing to take an appointment. This wasn't dial time that I would be in the middle of a team call, right? This wasn't dial time when I would go out and go for a walk. Okay. This was like non-negotiable dial time. I needed 12 hours a week because I actually needed more than that, Jim. But I knew my no-show rate was so bad, I was going to pick up some hours there from people no-showing me where I would try to get an appointment back on the calendar to replace that no-show. Because I needed about 15 presentations a week. All right. And the closer I could get to that, like I said before, the closer I was to meeting that overall monthly goal. Okay. It's not 15 appointments one week. I needed 15 appointments every week so that I can net $10,000 or more by the end of the month. Because if I missed a week, it meant my family having to rob Peter and pay Paul, rack up and open up another credit card or rack up another credit card, right? You guys know the game.
Yep.
We make sacrifices to our credit, we make sacrifices what to our 401k, right? What little there was of that 401k that we liquidated. We pulled all that out. Okay. There was a month, this was actually the month right after AO where we took our foot off the gas and we needed to tap into that 401k. We pulled it all out to give ourselves a cushion. So there was absolutely sacrifices made. But looking at the calendar practically, you need to tell yourself ahead of the week exactly when you're working. Okay, so I would sit down on Sunday and I would map that out for the week because, like, a lot of us tell ourselves we're really not good at sales. Okay, I'm figuring out sales. We're all really good at sales when it comes to negotiating what's in our calendar. All right, so if I look at my calendar for the whole week and then it comes to like Tuesday night, let's just say our friends from down the street hit us up. They're like, hey, we're having a barbecue over in the backyard. You guys are welcome to stop by. And my wife comes in and she's like, oh, it'd be so great for the kids to go see them. Let's walk over there. And that was my scheduled dial time. What am I going to do? Am I going to sell myself out of that dial time? Or am I going to stay committed to what I had planned out? Am I going to make the sacrifice? Because if we compound selling ourselves out of our calendar that we have set up for the week, all of a sudden we have a week that turns into a month of not accomplishing our goal. Okay? So practically speaking, do you have the time set out for the appointments? Do you have the time set out for the dial time? Are you telling yourself exactly what team calls you're plugging into and able to be on camera for? You guys hear a lot of leaders say this. If you're watching the replay, why even show up if you're not there? Show up on camera, take notes, engage in the comments. You may not hear something every single call that's going to change your business, but you're going to hear things throughout the month that'll change your business and you'll keep that with you forever. Like I heard this my very first week, Jim. The size and clarity of your goals will determine how quickly you run your feet. I heard that very early on from Ashley Tars my very first week. And so I crystallized what I wanted my future to look like. I envisioned it so many times that when it came to a dial time block in my calendar that I wanted to negotiate on, I remembered, nope, this is where I want to go. This is what I want for myself. So I'm going to have to plunk myself down in this chair and make the dials happen because I don't want to negotiate on that future. And what you were explaining before really to me is delayed gratification. And to be able to delay gratification, you have to be willing, you have to know why you're paying the price.
Hmm.
Why am I paying this price? Why did Jared have to donate plasma? Why did Sarah have to sell the Peloton? Why did she have to say no to vacations for so long? She knew exactly what she was paying the price for.
Yeah.
She had a crystal clear view of her future. You know, when Kate and I sit down around the dinner table or we're chatting in the living room, we're just hanging out, her and I, this is all we talk about, Jim. This is all we talk about, where we're sending our kids to private school, what type of vacations we're going on as a family, what we're saying yes to in the future. And for the first 3 years of building this business, we sacrificed everything because we knew what we were paying the price for. Okay, we guys, and I hate mentioning this. I told this to you last week, Jim. We still haven't taken a vacation. We're a 130 contract now. Our vacation's coming up in 2 weeks. So Kate's getting her dang vacation, and I'm so happy. But I wanted to give that to her sooner. She deserves that. But we are willing to say no to that then because the price is worth paying to accomplish another winning week. Another win. I need to just live another week, live another month here, and I can figure this thing out. So it was that compound schedule. It wasn't just 1 week, it had to be the whole month.
Can I add something to that? Like, you know what you're working for, yes. And it's like, I knew I was working towards 25, 50K, 75K, 100K a month numbers. But the things you don't know, like I didn't know that we were going to need to send that said 14-year-old to private Christian school because she was not thriving in public school. I didn't know 3 years down the road from me starting that was going to be a decision that was easy. Before this business, we would have never been able to do that. And now we have both girls in a private Christian school that is changing their lives and their futures, right? Like I didn't know that that little boy who was a senior in high school, Friday Night Lights, living that world when I started, would be marrying the girl of his dreams, 5 years later, and we would be able to help give them the wedding of their dreams, right? So you don't know, big picture, like the yes world that you're headed towards, but you don't know the things, whether it's a cancer diagnosis and you need to be off work for a while, or maybe it's your mom, needs some financial assistance because she's failing in health. You don't know what's going to happen 5 years from now, 6 years from now, that you're going to want to have done this work now.
Mhm.
And, it's unknown, but it's known. We're going to get
Real.
hit with something, right? There's going to be a big expense. And man, I will tell you, there's not much better where I don't even notice that two kids in private school bill going out each month, right? Like, didn't notice. And that is such a gift. And you just don't know. So,
Yeah, man, that's really good. Um, I want to zoom in on that because that's huge, but I want to honor this call being, and I heard it from Scott, but I want to make it crystal clear. There are three things that you're scheduling, guys, and don't make it more complicated than that. You're scheduling dial time, you're scheduling appointment time, and you're scheduling training time. That's it. You need to have, when are you dialing in your calendar? When are you running appointments in your calendar? And then when are you training? That all needs to be in your calendar. Now, Scott would have these 20 appointments. He would name them as he was dialing. He would look at these and I got 3 spots. He's writing names in. One thing that I did, I've got this whiteboard up to my left over here. And if you guys are seeing I've got 2 cameras right here. So you can see the whole big room and you can see my whiteboard. But one of the things on that whiteboard from my season in the field was I had upcoming appointments written at the top, and I had 1 through 10 there. And if I'm dialing, I'm setting appointments for within 24 hours, maybe 48 max if the client insisted, but typically within 24 hours. I had to always have 10 appointments on that board at all times. So if I ran an appointment, I'd erase it and have to fill it in. If I got ghosted, I'd erase it and have to fill it in. This was a little psychological trick because when I first started, as I booked appointments, I would write appointment 1, appointment 2, appointment 3. And if you have 3 appointments and you write 1, 2, 3, guess what? That list looks complete. But when you have empty spaces, it doesn't look complete. So by giving myself 10, if I only had 5, half that sheet looked empty. And having upcoming appointments, there is nothing greater for your business than upcoming appointments. They keep you sharpening your saw. They keep you excited and hopeful. They keep you with something to look forward to and get ready for. Most agents are going to stall when they've got nothing on the calendar coming up. They don't need to be sharp for anything. They don't need to train for anything. And they have no expectation of hope on their calendar. Having upcoming appointments, there is nothing more important to your business than that. Now, Sara, I want to zoom in on family because you talked about the unseen benefits, the stuff when you're in the struggle and you're in the sacrifice, you want to believe the good is coming. You want to expect, you see precedent that the good will come, but it doesn't mean you feel it. Right now, all you feel is struggle and sacrifice. And when you're in that season of struggle and sacrifice,
yeah.
how do you balance the very necessary actual things that you have? Because it would be really easy. Like I had it easy, relatively speaking, right? As in my wife ran the house. I had virtually, to this day, I have virtually 0 home responsibilities, but she also doesn't work, right? So I was freed up in my calendar to do whatever. If I had to work 100-hour weeks, if I had to show up at the office at 5 a.m. and stay here till 9 at night, I had the freedom to do that. Now, not everybody does. So for those of you without that freedom, with real, actual competing priorities, how did you do that, Sara? And how did you especially do that without feeling the shame of should? And what I mean by that I'll flesh out here, is I see a lot of people when they're spending time with their family feeling I should be working. And so they never get to fully enjoy their family.
Yeah.
And then when they're dialing and working and diving into their business, they feel the shame of, I should be with my family. And so no matter where they go, they feel the shame of should. And how do you balance and work that?
I'm just stuck on like that you have a wife. I'm like, man, I just needed one wife while I was getting this business going. Just one. I didn't have any. I was fresh out of my own. Man, must be nice, Jim. I was like, can I mute him right now? And he's saying that someone's taking care of all the meals and all the things. I mean, here's what I found. is that I found the whole time that I was working, my brain was like, you should be with your kids. You should be spending time with them. You should be making a homemade meal. You are not being a good mom. This is all the things in my head, right? And then when I am like on a date with Jared or hanging with my kids, or even at, it's Friday Night Lights, my son's senior year, I'd be at a football game and my brain's like, you should be dialing. Sarah Reineke, if you were any good at this, you should be dialing. I'm at dinner looking at a steak. No, probably not a steak. It's probably a burger back then. Burger and water, please. I'm probably thinking, yeah, I should be talking to Jared about our hopes and dreams. And I'm like, God, I should be dialing. I remember Susie and I would send these messages. We'd be on dates with our husbands and send a message saying, all I know is I should be dialing. I should be dialing. And we're like, this is miserable. We're hating our work life. And if I'm going to just be clear, like both sucked. Personal life sucked. We felt like we should be doing more, and our daily life at work, we felt like we weren't making any progress. I was like, this is terrible. We're spinning our wheels in both. And here's what dawned on us one day. We're like, what if we actually did what we said we were going to do during those pockets of time that we said we would do these things? We're like, hold on a minute. Truly, I remember the day. We're like, what if we actually dialed during those pockets of dial time that we said we would dial during the day? And we're like, maybe we should try that because really we would say we would dial and then we would get on the phone and complain about dialing or like that and we would try to run appointments and they would last about 7 seconds. We'd call each other and be like, yeah, it was a cute little quote or you. We would talk about it, but really we weren't dialing during dial time, running appointments during appointment time, training during training time. We were talking about, we were worrying about and training about, talking about, complaining about, doing a lot of that during our work time, which made our evenings time and our family time terrible. So that's when we really had to get intentional about one, how I'm going to set myself up to be excited and intentional and functional during my work time. And for me, that's working out at 5 a.m. So we get up at 4:30, we go at 5 to 6 a.m. I don't do that to pretend like I'm better than anyone else. The reason I do that is because there's no other time during the day that I can guarantee I'm available except for 5 to 6 a.m. That's it. Number two, my brain hasn't started working on emails yet, so I can actually just focus on my body getting stronger during that time. And then it's out of the way, and I start my day off with endorphins, dopamine, accomplished, and I have already proven to myself that I'm someone who does what I say I'm going to do at 5 a.m. If
Mm,
I've already talked myself into that at 5 a.m., I have a way better success rate of doing the same thing throughout the day.
Mm.
Okay, so if I dialed when I said I was going to dial and I ran my appointments and I got my 10 sits, guess what I enjoyed so much more on a Saturday night or a Sunday afternoon?
Your off time?
What? I was like, this is incredible.
What?
Should have thought of this a lot sooner. I enjoyed that because I'm like, I did what I said I'm going to do. I made money. There's money in the bank. I'm accomplished. I learned stuff. Cool. Let's go to dinner and get maybe, a margarita instead of a water. I don't know, to celebrate this. So that it took me way too long to grasp that. If I'm
I'll tell you one thing in there, and I've had to say this so many times, I might get it tattooed on myself, but worrying is not working.
I
And I
tried.
spent long seasons confusing those two things. I'd be
Yes.
sitting in dial time worrying
Oh yeah.
about dialing, but not dialing,
Oh yeah.
worrying about the future of my business, but not building my business, right? Like it's
Yep.
very easy to get into those windows and confuse work and worry, but they're not the same. Um, Scott, I love you do these I am statements and you coach and you mentor and you train people on setting them up. And when you're introducing yourself, you introduce yourself first off as you are a man of discipline. That's the
mhm.
first thing that you'll tell people. And in my mind, a man of discipline is really nothing more than a man who very simply just does what he says he's gonna do. So when you're coaching people, mentoring people, working with people, you can get them to set up the calendar and their calendar can look great, but they're going to be tempted to not follow through on the stuff that's actually in their calendar.
Yeah.
How did you become that man of discipline that does what he said he's going to do? And how do you coach other people to follow through, especially if they have a history of, maybe not following through so much?
Yeah. Yeah, that's like that's the very first week in the sequence of coaching that we do. is coming up with the I am statement because you have to choose who you're going to be ahead of time. I
Mm.
think professionals make decisions based on commitments and amateurs make decisions based on feelings. So if you're going to leave it up to feelings, you're going to negotiate on who you are in that moment unless you stick to your commitment of who you say you are. So when I was telling myself I'm a man of discipline, honor, and presence, discipline first, like I wasn't that before. I had to speak that over myself, and that was so important for the rewiring of going into a situation where I can go down this road and negotiate, or I can go down this road and commit, right? Well, I'm a man of discipline, so the man of discipline would commit, and then like presence, like being present where my 2 feet are. I'm not focused on other things. Like what Sarah was talking about, I would be at family time and I'd be like, text, 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 set up appointment, respond, reschedule. I was somewhere else. So if I'm going to be a man of presence, I got 2 roads to go down again, right? Am I going to negotiate on that? And am I going to rebook this appointment or am I going to be present in the moment? Right. So the cool thing is about the sequence is week 2 we go into little disciplines. We don't start with like, let's rewire your entire life. We actually come up with non-negotiables for the week. And we do this here in this business, Jim. We've done this exercise together
Yep.
where we pick out the 6 things that I'm not willing to negotiate on a weekly basis. And for me, that was the 15 appointments. That was the 3 training calls. One of them was a team call, 2 of them were training, and that was the dial time. Okay. So if I was committing to those, just bare minimum, those 3 things related to this business that I was committing to each week, I had to check those boxes and I wasn't willing to negotiate on those things. So if I can compound that week after week after week, I become the person that does that.
Mm.
Okay? I'm a man of discipline. So if I'm going to do that, then I'm going to have those three things accomplished by the end of the week, or I'm going to work until. Okay, because I'm not going to negotiate out on a Friday afternoon when I'm that close, right? I'm like that close to hitting my goal for the week, and I could take the easy route and step out of the office. So that's the first thing, and then we get, my coach always tells me he's like, if you had someone following you around, Scott, for 168 hours, what would they convict you of? And this goes back to Sarah when she was talking about like, oh, I should have been dialing. Like if someone followed Sarah and I around our first month, they probably would have said like, they kind of want to be a life insurance agent. They keep talking about it. But would they really believe what you were saying based on what you were doing in those time blocks, right? Like Jim, if I came to you and I was like, "Hey, Jim, I want to invest into your business." But what before I write this check, it's a blank check right now. Before I write this check, what I really want to see is I want you to pull up your calendar. I want to see where you're spending your time, but I actually want to follow you around for a couple of days. Okay. And during those days, like I want to make sure I can invest into your life insurance business. So I want to make sure that, based on your goals for the week or for the month, are you doing the right amount of activity? Are you running the proper amount of appointments? And are you actually like following through with that calendar? And at the end of the week, I'm going to write you a check. I'm going to invest into your business. Right. So if I had that conversation with you and I followed you around for a couple of days, would I end up writing you a check or would you owe me money for my time?
Mm.
Ouch.
Yeah, that's
Like,
good.
like, like, like this is a startup, guys. You're starting your business. So would your actions attract an investor? Would they? Would your first year profit attract an investor? Okay, because if I told you, Jim, I was like, Jim, I've sacrificed though, and you talked about your season of deployment. I can relate with that. I sacrificed. I sold the side by sides. I sold 2 Harleys. We gave up vacations for 3 years. Kate gave up nails and hair for 2 years. I gave up haircuts. I started shaving my head. Okay.
Ah.
We sacrificed all these things. So if I was telling the investor, I'm like, I sacrificed all these things, and they're like, yeah, but you said that you sit on 15 appointments a week, and I followed you around for 3 days and you didn't sit on any appointments. I can't write that check, right? That's where like the follow through. You have to become the person that actually does the things, which is where Sarah started. So, if I told the investor all these things that I was willing to sacrifice, and then he was like, all right, Scott, well, I want to hear about profit after year one. And I came back and I was like, 134 grand after lead cost. And they're like, okay, cool. That's a great start for your first year of business. Year two, 210 grand after lead cost. We're getting better. Year three, 330,000 after lead cost. Wow, I'm okay. What number do you want me to write on this check? Because I'm sold. I'm ready to invest. Right? So profit's not our main focus. People are our main focus. But you have to stay busy serving people throughout the week. and stay busy doing the activity that it takes to actually sit on an appointment. Otherwise, that investor would walk away. They would follow you around for 3 days and they'd be like, no, I'm not sold. I'm not convinced.
Man, that is such a good point, and I've not heard it that way in that investor thing. That's a really good. I've heard it in terms of like now that you're your own boss, if you were doing your performance review, would you get fired or get a raise? Same concept, but it's the self-evaluation of are you the type of person who can hold yourself accountable without a boss? Because again, for so many of us, this was our first foray into professional independence, which comes with needing to hold ourselves accountable. I love that. Now, we got a question in the comments about analog versus digital calendars and organizational methods. I'm going to shelve that. We'll come back to that one because there's one a little more pressing, and there's two philosophies here that I want you guys to unpack a little. We've talked a little bit about this dial until philosophy. Right. And a dial until is you dial until you get the needed results. Right. So it's a results based focus. I'm going to put in whatever activity I need to put in until I get this result. Now, there are two ways to look at this, and that's how I treat my full-time agents. My full-time agents are like, hey, we're dialing until you have time, you need results. So whatever it takes. Now, with part-time agents, by nature of their part-time status, they're wearing different hats. They're limited on time. So sometimes, and not even just with part-time, sometimes this is even full-time agents up front, I want them to get into activity-based goals instead of results-based goals altogether. So instead of dialing until, I'm thinking of, I want you to get into a rhythm of 500 dials. And just out of curiosity, see what that delivers. We'll adjust and work on skill set to tighten those ratios, but we need to get you into a rhythm of dialing before we worry about what that dialing delivers. Can you guys talk about who am I up to? Am I up to you, Sarah? Yeah, I'm going to turn it over to you. Talk to me about the results-based versus activity-based goals, or the dial until versus hanging your hat on a job well done with activity.
Man, are you talking part-time, full-time? Kind of how we handle those
I don't
different?
know. Talk on that topic, and if you see fit to differentiate, go with it.
Well, I guess I don't. That's what I kind of wanted to just
Well,
address a
then
little
speak to
bit. Yeah.
both. Speak to your
Okay.
full-timers
Yeah.
and your part-timers.
I mean, part-time, full-time, it just means if you're coming here part-time like Scott, where he's like, man, he was working his full-time job and had to do this, um, but he was very highly motivated to get out of job A to get to job B. And I think most of us would agree you can't use part-time as an excuse because I think it can come across the same way. I could have said, well, but I have kids. Right?
Mm,
I mean, well, I'm part-time. Anything you say in that tone, watch because it's probably the excuse that you're laying out. Like, if I don't make it, it's probably because of this.
mm,
Truly.
it's
But I'm
good.
blank, right? So we all have things. Either we're taking care of failing parents, we're taking care of babies, we're taking care of teenagers, whatever it might be. We've all got things, like Jim said, that was filling our time, whether it's the day job, the part-time job, whatever. It's a matter of how important is it to make this your full-time job. So if you are highly motivated to do that, then you truly need to work two full-time jobs for a while. You really just have to do that. And I think the biggest difference between part-time, full-time is that you're not as flexible with the hours. So when Jim talks about, pick two or three calls to be present on, camera on, you may not be able to do that depending on the flexibility of job A. Then what I'm going to encourage you to do is to pick times specifically every week where you're going to catch those replays and actually listen to them. Not just like Charlie Brown teacher in your head. Truly listen to those and find a time weekly to stay up on it because we know the people who are engaged in what we offer will actually make it here. And regarding the dialing until, I think, the very simple truths that I was taught by Jacob and Marshall, who, is number one in the company, number three in the company. That's who I got to learn from, thank goodness. And the very basics are sitting with 10 families a week, 10 families a week. We call those sits around here. Whatever you have to do to get to 10 sits a week, that's the magic number. Some of you might have to book 20 appointments to get 10. At the 50% rule is pretty true to form. You might be super good at this early, unlike myself. I was not super good at this early. But you might be. We don't know your metrics. As Jim says, you might be able to book 14 to get 10 to show up. You might have to book 27 to get 10 to show up. We just don't know until we get in. But I have yet to see someone who books, who sits. That means they showed up for you, not a sale. We'll see how many sales you get from that. But I have yet to see someone who consistently books 10 appointments a week and sits with ten families a week that doesn't get profitable real quick. So to me, you got to find your number. I mean, Andrew Jimenez talks about doing 1,200 dials to make that happen, right? Everybody's going to be a little bit different, but the 10 sets a week is the number that I feel like I've never seen fail.
Mm.
Yeah.
Scott, you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, if you adopt that mentality, you become dangerous. You become really dangerous because the activity-based goals, it's good to start building a habit of a dial volume or an appointment volume. Hey, if I could get to 500 this week, I'm going to chalk it up as a good week. Great. What if that doesn't give you the results you need though?
Right.
So
Mm.
when you adopt an until mentality, this was me last year, Jim. We needed it too. We needed it. I went 36 weeks in the field of 5K weeks. I was consistently good. I was never occasionally great. I never had a knockout win out of those 36 weeks. There was no 20K weeks. Okay. I promise you. It was consistently 5K weeks. I would take someone who's consistently good at working until they hit their 5K week over someone that writes a 30K week every once in a while. And the
Mm.
reason behind that is because that's a person that can accomplish anything. They can like I have a friend, Jim, and every single morning for the past like 6 years that I've known him, he goes outside at 5 a.m. and he takes a picture of his feet and he says, "Thank you, God, for today." And that's right before he goes to the gym. Every single day I've seen this for years. I have more trust and faith in him as a leader than I do someone that like knocks it out of the park every once in a while.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
Mhm.
they showed up amazing, every once in a while. So I think having that consistent of work until mentality, if you can build yourself into that type of person, well, there was me on a Friday night, Jim, $320 away from my 5K a week. Again, two decisions. Which road do I go down? Call it in for the week, or am I a person that finishes? Well, I was getting on the phone with clients I had already sold from the week, trying to sell them an accidental policy on top of their term.
Mhm.
I was fighting for it. So when you have activity-based goals, you're going to reach that goal, and there's really not much else to fight for. When you have the work until mentality, you're going to become someone that fights for that, and you won't leave the week without it.
Man, I love that. And when you think on that concept of consistency, like you mentioned, you can trust consistency, you can rely on consistency. Pull out of this industry, guys. If your car only turned on half the time when you went to get in it, like you wouldn't know if you could trust it to get you to work or if you could call an Uber, right? So like no matter what, no matter where you are, what you're doing, if you can't trust that the light switch is going to go on, like you're going to call an electrician if it only comes on sometimes, you got to work your business that same way with that level of consistency, like your goals actually matter to you. Last question, analog versus digital. We're gonna probably split opinions here. I'm a digital guy. I love all of the built-in systems and automations that you can leverage with a digital calendar, from built-in reminders and all that stuff. I know Jamie Susie to this day is analog. She writes stuff down in notebooks. She tracks her profit and loss in notebooks. So I don't care what you do as long as you stay organized. But for my money, I'm a digital guy. Sarah, Scott, I'll let you guys weigh in.
I mean, I had to do paper to figure it out. I had to learn the hard way here, and then I learned to do both, and now I'm completely digital because my schedule became just normal, for me. I put a link up there for the Blue Sky calendar. It's actually an appointment book. That's what served Susie and I really well. It opens up, it shows your whole week at a glance. I had to visually see it. And then we took highlighters. We had 5 or 6 colors. We used green for making money. So then we would highlight all of our appointment times. I did the same as Scott. I numbered 1, 2, 3 all the way to 20. So I already named it, but I already colored it green because that's where we're making money. I had a different color for dialing. I had a different color for calls that I'm getting on, blocking off that time, coloring it in. Purple was for personal. So if I had a dentist appointment, which I never make during a call that I plug into, that always kills me. I'm like, how does that happen? And then what's crazy is there's still a lot of time in there. I would also block off time for training. Until you have sat with 100 families, you should be spending 2 or 3 hours a week getting better. at this thing.
Mm.
This is your career. People miss that a whole lot. And then the other piece to that, I would do that the Thursday before, color it all in. And then as the week went on, I would write on top my DCAs, who I met with, my appointments, what the call was, guest speaker, Scott Schnitzer, here's what I learned. I would write all over it. What did I read? What did I do? Then I could look back at those weeks and be like, man, okay, I did a lot, covered a lot, made some sales, I put my APV. So I would say what I will do, and then I would write on top of it what I did do each week until that became my norm. And then I started using a Google Calendar. For me, if I didn't color it in and draw it with my own hand, then it would just become an ongoing thing in my Google Calendar that didn't mean anything to me. So
Yeah.
I had to have the tactile connection to make it important in my brain anyway.
Yeah, that's good. Scott?
Yeah, for me, it's always been digital. We've leveled up since we started because we've learned the importance of mastering a calendar. Right at the beginning, it was very elementary, but now I have a personal calendar. That's where I schedule all of my personal things. So workouts, hangouts with friends. Maybe it's a men's group that I'm a part of that week. Maybe it's date night, family time. I block off non-negotiable time. Kate has a personal calendar, so there's two. And in Google, you can actually have separate calendars that all overlap. So I've got my personal calendar, I've got Kate's personal calendar, I've got the team call schedule, and then I've got my personal work calendar. And Jim, if you don't mind, I can share my screen. I just want to
Yeah.
show how they layer in.
Yeah, go for it.
So you guys will see first my personal calendar. Okay, workouts go on there first, family time goes on there first, and then I want to build around that. So when I talk about like my work calendar, you can layer that in. Okay. You guys caught me. I golfed last Monday. It was a holiday, but we still got a bunch of work in. Okay. So I've got now my work calendar. Okay. Then I can layer in the Schnitzer Master Agency calendar, which is a lot of the Mac room calls. We have those layered in there. And then I've also got Kate's calendar that I can layer in there. So you guys can see how things get unlayered. There's there's benefits to doing both. Hand to paper, great. For me, it was always digital because I could share with Kate and she could see what I had going on, my commitments, and I could see what she had going on. And we tried to perfect our schedule every week. We didn't want any overlaps. If Kate needed me to be somewhere, I needed her to be somewhere. I didn't want it to overlap with her dial time so that she would have to negotiate on that. We
Hmm.
both needed that dial time. So, yeah, just getting on the same page as my family. We have overlapping calendars now.
Yeah, I'm gonna put in a plug for Skylight calendars. It's not cheap. We just got it. It's freaking brilliant. But that is our family's personal calendar that is literally on the wall in our house. And all I do on that one is put in my work hours. My family doesn't need to necessarily see itemized throughout the day what I'm doing. They just, for their purposes and for the sake of my family, they need to know dad is working during these hours. I have a separate Outlook calendar where I am detailed. And so while I'm at work, here's what I'm doing detailed out. But on the family one, all they see is dad's working. And then it's detailed out again separately. Um,
Kate also runs my work calendar, so I had to make her a part of the granular details. So
nice.
that's helpful.
I'm gonna pitch it to each of you for just, 15-second closing thought. And Scott, I'll start with you.
Yeah, don't be fooled by the time freedom. Like it's a paradox almost at this point, right? You've got to put in the work to get yourself to be able to afford the time freedom. Um, don't over-index work and sacrifice personal fitness time. Like make sure that it's super early in the morning. You're not going to the gym at 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. You're getting up super early. All successful people that I know get up really, really early and they conquer the day, just like Sarah was talking about earlier. Time blocking, like not just time blocking to block out the time in your calendar, but be very specific. Okay. You need, depending on your goals, anywhere from 10 to 12 to 13 hours of dial time a week. You need to sit in front of 10 families. You need to name those things in your calendar and be specific. Be crystal clear on your non-negotiables. Okay. When we were talking about coaching earlier, Jim, the non-negotiables are the second thing we go through, right? What are those 4, 5, 6 things every single week you're not negotiating on? So when it comes to that split in the road, you can take the path that actually serves your goals instead of
Mhm.
negotiating on that time. And then the work until mentality. Okay. And that has to do with personal development. You got to be a person that reads. You got to be a person that does hard things. Okay. We get too soft around here. We negotiate on things because it's the norm.
Yeah.
It's the norm. It's what we see to our left and right. Okay. If you want to become the person that doesn't negotiate and you're a work until type of person, you got to develop yourself into that. So reading is very important. Podcasts are really important.
Yeah, I want to
Stay
plug the
growing.
accountability call too, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern. If you need a kick in the butt to not be so easy on yourself, that environment is designed to help you toughen up a little bit. So I'll put in a plug for that. Sarah, 15 seconds, closing thoughts.
Easy. Ask yourself this question, and do I believe that I am someone who does what I say I'm going to do? Write that question down, check yourself. And I say that with all the heart and love because I asked myself that question and I did not believe it. I had given up on working out. I'd given up on eating healthy. I'd given up on everything. I had quit and quit and quit and quit and quit and had not followed through on promises to myself. To other people, plenty, but to myself, I had negotiated with myself way too much. And the problem is if you don't believe that you're someone who does what you say you're going to do, no one else is going to believe it either. Your clients, your future agents, the people you're looking to hire, no one's going to stick to you. And your mentor is also not going to work with you because they're going to smell that pretty quickly as well. So
Mm.
this is why Jim having this as number one is so important. You have to prove to yourself, and whether that's doing 75 hard, reading every day for 30 days straight, doing a dry January, whatever it is, pick a challenge or it just the dials, it's sticking to your schedule, something that you can do and prove to yourself that you are someone who does what you say you're going to do. Nail that down until you believe it, and everything else falls into place soon after that, for sure.
Man, so good. And guys, I'll tell you too, you came here for a reason. None of you were just bored, sitting on a pile of money. There was something more you wanted, and you saw a vision for how this could deliver that. And I want to tell you it can. Not only can it deliver your biggest goal, you're going to find yourself, if you walk through this process, you're going to find yourself starting to raise the bar on what you expect from yourself. And you're going to start having even bigger goals. But none of that's going to happen if you don't first master your schedule. If you don't get this down, not only are you not going to get your goals, you're going to quit and you're going to go right back to where you came from. None of us want you to do that. You don't want you to do that. Your kids don't want you to do that. Your family doesn't want you to do that. Your goals are worth it. And the first step to your goals is mastering your schedule. Really, really glad you guys tuned into this. Really hoping, praying, and expecting it added a ton of value. Sarah and Scott, thank you guys. I learned a ton just being the MC of this conversation. It was so great.
Thanks for doing this, Jim. It's
Thanks,
important.
Jim.
All right. Bye, y'all.